On today's show, it is part 2 with my friend Brian Schroeder and I talking about the 2024 NBA draft. Stay tuned. That is on the way.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1534 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Monday evening into Tuesday, and this is part 2 of 2 with my friend Brian Schroeder. If you missed part 1, I encourage you to listen to that first in order if you'd like to have the free flow of the conversation, but it's all about the 2024 NBA draft. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn right now to get started, and please always make it your first listen each and every day. Please subscribe to the podcast anywhere you get your podcast, places like Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. And again, Brian and I, this is part 2, talk about the 2024 draft in somewhat comprehensive fashion. It's still very early, of course, but always fun to talk to Brian about the NBA draft, and that is coming up right now. There was a time, I don't know if you were on this or not, there was a time that like DJ Wagner was like considered to be kind of the guy in this class. I'm not going to ask what happened because, he's still up there. He's still in the top 10 for everybody, but like, what's going on with DJ Wagner?
Nothing really happened. He just is kind of the same player as he was 2.5, 3 years ago, which is to say he'll drop 50. Like he could have a 50-point game in college this year. He hasn't really. It's a little bit of the Imani Bates thing. I mean, he's a better prospect, but Imani Bates looks exactly the same physically as he did when he was 16.
Yep.
And like that's RJ Barrett had that problem. Although RJ Barrett was bigger. That's the thing. I'm really starting to put less and less. What is it? Less and less stock into like I'm really not paying attention to guys until they're sophomores in high school, unless they're super elite, obvious, maybe even juniors, because
unless they're like Flag and Boozer.
Unless they're Flag and Boozer, which is I want to say this before I forget. There's another thing about this class. This class is maybe less exciting at the top, but it's interesting to me as a draft guy because I think we're going to get 10 people to have like 7 different top groups. 7 or 8. Like there's really not much consensus. Whereas like we kind of know the next 3 drafts who the number 1 pick's going to be.
I was gonna at the end I was gonna ask you about that because they're getting it's weird, not unprecedented, but it's very weird in some ways that the incoming class right now is getting way less attention than the classes behind them, which is just not how they usually happen. Because usually it's like, okay, these guys are going to be in college now. We got to focus on them, but it's like Flag and Boozer. And it's like all
assuming that guys. What I've heard, as far as I am aware of it, Flag's probably reclassifying.
I have
for the 25 draft, and if he does, he will be the number 1 pick.
Yes,
just almost. I mean, he'll probably be the number 1 pick in that year if he stays. But
this is, but in case anybody doesn't know who this is, it's Cooper Flag.
Flag.
You can Google him if you want to, but
he's pride of Maine. Monster, just a demonic force in high school basketball. He's insane.
We will talk about him a lot in the next couple of years.
Yeah. And then Cameron Boozer, Carlos Boozer's son, seems like he'll be the number 1 pick in that year. He's a 2007 born, so 26. And then depending on who reclassifies and who doesn't, Tyran Stokes, AJ Dibansa, or Jaden Quaintance for the year after that. They're all monsters. Like the top 10 prospects in the world right now, I would say maybe Ron and Collier are in this draft, and that's it. That's
not usually how it
not
works.
Good. Yeah, it's not ideal.
No. But yeah, I mean, Wagner is going to Kentucky. There was a big recruiting battle there. He is, if you don't know, he's the son of DeJuan Wagner, which if you're like Brian and I's age, you would know exactly what that means.
DJ Wagner, we'll go back to him. He will be the first 3rd generation NBA player. Because his grandfather Milt played in the NBA.
Milt was there. Yeah,
DeJuan played with the Cavs, and now he'll be the first 3rd generation player. I still really like DJ. Like DJ he's a paint generator. Like he just gets into the paint at will. He's not a super consistent finisher because he's kind of thin. He hasn't bulked up, and he's not like a knockdown shooter. Like he's there's Jamal Crawford. There's some Jamal Crawford in his game, which is good, but you forget Jamal Crawford was never really a starter. There's a little bit of Jason Terry. There's a little bit of Sharif Cooper. There's a little bit he's a really interesting player. He's really, really electric when he's on, but he's not on the way that superstars are. That's the only real concern I have with him.
I'm not going to do this on purpose, but we never would have known what actually would have happened with his dad. But his dad was kind of the same coming in. Like he was even more famous because he was an incredible, legendary high school player, I should say, and he had health issues, which sort of derailed him. But that was kind of the knock on his dad. It was like he might be a sixth man because that's all he did. He was a scorer, and that's what he did. And there's room for that. And I think even honestly, just the archetype you're talking about might fit better in today's game than it would have fit. And like Jamal Crawford, I think would start now. You know what I mean? Like Jamal Crawford would have been a starter for somebody now, just the way that the game works. Like I think ideally maybe a sixth man, but like guys like, I'm not trying to say Jamal Crawford is Tyler Hero but like that archetype ends up starting now. They don't usually call it the bench. Yeah. So, but
and NBA teams are less concerned about a guy being a pure point guard, like the way Collier is. But Wagner could be somebody's too. Like, yes. I have very few doubts about, like, his talent is, I have no doubts about it. It's just the physicality, the consistency as like a scorer, because that's what he is. I mean, he's not like a ball hog, but that's what you're getting.
Isn't he like really thin too? Like, isn't he like 170?
Yeah. He's like 175. I think he's like 165, 6'4", 165. Yeah, he's got it.
Very thin.
It might be an issue. It was an issue for Nick Smith. Nick Smith was this kind of player last year. I think DeJuan's better. I think DJ was a better prospect all along. But yeah, and ideally, if he'd put on a little weight and really was consistent, he'd be the number one pick far and away because he would just have scoring talent the other guys don't.
Well, that was what it was 2 years ago. That was what it was supposed to be. That was kind of the way it was hyped, was that he was going to be the guy.
And he's been consistently inconsistent. He's just kind of the same guy. The only way to describe him, it's baseball season. He's like the kind of guy. I don't want to say he's like Jeff Francoeur. More like
wow, shots fired at my high school my colleague.
Justin Upton, like that kind of guy.
Okay.
Like, this guy will have a 2-week stretch where he looks like the best player in baseball, and then he'll just be fine. He's like a guy. He's a 5'2" prospect, but those guys don't always pan out, if that makes sense.
That's appropriate for you and I doing a podcast during a Braves Cubs series in August, which is what's happening.
I'm not aware of any such series.
I know. That's what happens. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is, of course, about to kick off. FanDuel is going to give you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on the Super Bowl winner at FanDuel, you can get bonus bets every single time they win during the regular season. Pick any team that you want to win the Super Bowl. You'll get bonus bets for each and every victory. Then you can use your bonus bets on point spreads, player props, over-unders, and much more. The FanDuel app is also safe and secure. They have all kinds of different betting angles for you to choose from, everything, honestly, that you want to in the betting space. The FanDuel app is the place to find all of that to cover the entire range of sports: NFL, college football, NBA, WNBA, MLB, college basketball, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, all of that and more is at FanDuel. And there's no better place in the world to bet on football and basketball action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon right now and start earning bonus bets immediately. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Check out FanDuel today. After that, we'll talk about anybody you want to. I know you well enough to know that you probably have a guy or two that you already love that's not a top guy.
The other guy in my tier one, other tier one guy I have is Mara, is Adai Mara, who's going to UCLA. Because he's just like, this guy, if it was 2005, would be the #1 pick. He's 7'2", 240, long arms, awesome shot blocker, legit like Andrew Bogut style. That's kind of who he reminds me of. Just like a huge guy with good footwork, good passer, will hit turnaround hooks like crazy. Like Alex Len, that kind. He's just like a huge guy. Like that guy was a top 5 pick 10 years ago.
Is he 7'3"-ish? He's huge,
I think he's 7'2", but he's a big dude.
I actually just read about him more. We're recording this podcast on Friday night. I think he literally didn't he like officially commit like today to UCLA?
Yeah, to UCLA. Yeah. There was so he had problems with his team. His Zaragoza, I think, wasn't letting him out of they weren't letting him out of his contract. Like he committed to UCLA weeks ago. He agreed to go there, but he wasn't actually like there till today. It was finally official. I really like he's been dominating his youth, like his age group in Spain, which is the second or third best basketball country in the world, depending on what you feel about France. He just is like, he really looks like he has some power in him, in that like that kind of just just makes really quick decisions, and he's never wrong. And he's got really good feet. Like, he's not. He'll have to probably be a drop big in the NBA, but he'll be a drop big in the way that Brook Lopez is, where it's like you're not going to cook him. Like, Brook Lopez does not get cooked very often.
Well, and if you're
he gets switched
7'3",
onto,
if you're 7'3", there's a little bit more leeway too. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, Walker Kessler's a good example. Just I'm not saying he's going to be Walker Kessler right away, but like that extra bit of size, like you can, if you use your body right, you can be more flexible than you might think at that size.
Yeah. Yep. I feel like he seems like a very solid Vucevic level center, at least. Like, this guy will probably start. Like, he's just solid. He's just good. He'll probably shoot at some point. He's just a good player. I don't know how else to describe him. I'm a fan.
I mean, I'm intrigued. I literally have not watched him other than just like reading things. I saw some highlights. I think it was today or yesterday, but I look forward to watching him now.
Yeah, I'll go through the rest. I mentioned Almanza. We mentioned Klingon. Deron Holmes is still solid. Alex Sarr.
I love Deron Holmes, by the way.
Big Deron Holmes. I love it.
Maybe love is too strong, but I like Deron Holmes a lot.
He's good. He should have been in this draft.
I think he should have stayed in too. Agreed.
The only other big that I would really put as like a casual watch this guy is Dennis Evans at Louisville. Now, I'm worried because he's going to Louisville and they were horrid. But he's 7'1", 210, super thin. But 7'6", 7'7" wingspan. But he has like he's not anywhere near this level prospect even at this age, but he has a little bit of the Mobley Jaren, like, just ability to get to shots as a shot blocker. Like, he could be like, I mean, he could like at least, I don't know who's like, people don't think about this. Like, Theo Ratliff was like a
Hawks
8
legend.
block percentage guy for like 6 or 7 years. Like, he was a dominant. Maybe Camby. Maybe Camby is the guy you look at for like, Dennis Evans has the physical ability to be a defensive player of the year. He's just really raw, really young. He does almost nothing on offense, and that's why I wish he was going somewhere with a little better structure than Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, I think Louisville they should be better than last year, which is the lowest possible bar. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah. But I am a fan. Like, I am intrigued by Dennis Evans. I think he's very interesting. He's also, I mean, I think he just turned 18. Like, he's about the same age as Holland. Like, he's really young. Only other guys I would really talk about is like second tier guys. Zachary Risasher from Asvel. Although I was a little disappointed with him.
He was on my list. I want to ask you one thing. He was on my list to ask you because I'm not trying to. I don't know. So, but I had heard, I think Sam talk about him somewhere. I read what you wrote, and then I looked at ESPN's mock from, I think it was like June, and he was third. And I was like, this is not lining up with what I'm hearing from other people.
Yeah, so the phrase I have heard from someone I trust was that he's a little bit of an industry plant. Like, he's getting the mainstream buzz when he doesn't really deserve it. And I would agree with that.
It was just a weird, like, because Sam's going to tell me. I mean, he's going to say what he thinks, I know you will. But
it's the France thing too. It's a little bit of a Wemby bump because like Sissoko,
he's from
and
Asvel,
Koulibaly,
from Asvel.
Sissoko and Koulibaly, and even Ryan Repair, probably not actually top 20. Well, I know that's where Koulibaly went, and I get it more with him because he's got like really high level athleticism, and he looked okay. He looked okay at something. Like, he didn't look lost.
No, I mean,
he didn't look like he'd never played basketball
before. And that's also the Wizards. Like, it was funny. This is an NBA thing, but the Wizards, after so long of fighting the not so good fight and never doing it, now they're blowing it up, and they like went as far as possible by also taking like the biggest project in the lottery too. It's like, hey, by the way, we're not only blowing it up, we're going to take the guy who is like probably the furthest away of everyone that's in the top 15, which is interesting. I mean, I don't mind it. It's kind of a smart play, but anyway, that's. But
Risasher, I am intrigued by him because I like his handle, but he may just be like a wing, just like a guy. But I can see top 10 buzz for him. I could see, because like he's smooth, can handle a little bit, like seems to know what he's doing on defense. I don't know what he does at like a super high level, which is why the top 3 stuff was like a little. Even in this draft, I don't know what we're doing, but
I was just surprised
I can see the
hearing about him from people that I trust more than anything else.
Then the only other guys I would mention here, I really like Omaha Blue, Billy U, but Blue is how it's pronounced. Going to Iowa State.
I never would have gotten Blue from that, just for the record. I'm glad you said
Omaha,
it first.
it's like Blue, Bilu
Yeah.
is more how you say
It is spelled Biliew, and I never would have had what you just said. So, shouts to you.
But I like Omaha. I think he's kind of like I've been doing this more and more, comparing guys to like lottery picks from different eras. He's the guy who'd been like a top 6 pick in like 2008, when like the Julian Wright guys were all everywhere. Everyone was like that guy. Because he's like super, just a 6'7", 6'8", 220, long arms, super aggressive, really good athlete, just like really powerful. Precious Achua is kind of the idea of him. I think I like him more than that, but like that's like the archetype now of like this guy's probably gonna play 5 a little, because he's just like a big strong dude who can run really fast.
Yeah.
I want to see Iowa State's interesting. I want to see him. I want to see this guy Milan Momcilovic, who's going there with him, who's like a 6'9" shooter. If either of those guys can actually like do anything with the ball in their hands, I think they could be lottery. Like they're both lottery picks.
I feel like Iowa State's a place that you always seem to find someone that you like.
Well, those guys are like 4-star, like 4 or 5-star recruits. I like Trenton Flowers from Louisville. He was a guy who reclassified. He's kind of a huge Sean Livingston style guard, like 6'7", 6'8".
Speak my language now. I'm in.
Delano Banton kind of guy.
I'm already.
I don't know if he's actually good. And then I should mention Cody Williams. He's Jalen Williams, Santa Clara's J-Dub, his younger brother. He's gotten a little.
I've seen him some lottery stuff.
He's gotten that bump because of who his brother is. Like he's
Which
not physically ready to be that kind of elite prospect yet, but he is 6'8", and like he's one of the guys who looks really good when you see him walk. He passes the eye test when you see him walk on the court. And then just to make everyone feel old, I'll mention Andrei Stojakovic. Yes, that's Paige's son from Stanford.
We are washed as a people.
And then those are all the wings. The only other guys I would mention, Rob Dillingham, who I'm more and more wary of the little guards because the bar is so high. But Rob Dillingham is one of the best ball handlers.
How little is he?
6'1", 6'2", 170.
That's not that small. It's not. Yeah, it's not big though.
He's also going to Kentucky. He is one of the best ball handling prospects that's come along in the last 10 years. He's incredible.
This is sort of an offshoot of that, but like I think you're probably right to be a little worried about the small guys. Just the way this is obviously one example, but like the way that Kennedy Chandler has not worked, and not even in a way like he hasn't even done anything wrong. It's just that he's kicking on the floor, and he got cut with a guaranteed contract, and it was like, and it's just one guy, but like they're number one. The league seems to be going away from these guys. Number one on purpose, and then when they do land, they just don't get chances. I mean, Trey is that size, but Trey is a freak, so I don't really count him. I guess the thing is you kind of have to be awesome if you're going to be that size. You know what I mean? There's not really that same like Ish Smith path to just be like a backup at that size. It doesn't really exist anymore. It seems. You got to look at even the playoff rosters. Like the guys under 6'2" who are really like Peyton Pritchard doesn't play in the playoffs. And that was a weird one anyway. I mean, he wasn't. I mean, where did he go in the draft? I'm trying to think where he
was late. Like Dennis Schroeder has probably played in the playoffs. Malachi Flynn. I'm just going through my roster thing now.
Well, Dennis Schroeder's been around for a long time. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it wasn't like he just came in the league. Like Dennis was drafted almost 10 years ago, which is crazy. As someone who
the upside for a guy like Dillingham is that he's Darius Garland. That's like the best you can hope for, which is good. I mean, hey, I would take Darius Garland top 3 in this draft.
Of course, definitely. But you almost have to be Darius Garland. You know what I mean? Like you almost have to be that good to like stick. Which is weird. I mean, that's not obviously foolproof because you mentioned Pritchard. Pritchard's a rotation player in the NBA. Like that's not nothing. But he's also in a great situation. Like Boston being surrounded by all those guys was perfect.
As the league becomes more and more, as ball handling becomes more and more spread out, you just don't have the need for the little point guard when like you can have Jason Tatum handle.
Well, I mean, okay, this is a guy that
Monte Morris is like the.
Well, and Monty, I know we both loved, and Monty's great. But even then, you see, like, he's not getting prioritized. I think everyone knows that's
what it is.
He's the most solid guy in the world, and if you have him, it's great. But like, I love Monty Morris, and he went too far. He fell too far in the draft, but like,
way too far.
If you could do it again, he still wouldn't go in the top. He wouldn't go in the lottery, even now, even knowing what he's done. So I don't know. It's interesting, kind of just like an offshoot because, you know, another example recently, and this is, I think a lot of it, he's had a bad season. Like you and I both loved Sharif, and Sharif is a good example of like, he's just not good enough at that size. No. And teams don't want to teams don't want to fool with you if you're not at that level and you're that size. Like they have to game plan around you. They don't want to do that.
Yeah, and they have to. Yeah, that's the thing. That's kind of what I was getting at with ball handling. Like when you're going to be a defensive liability, even if you're good.
Yeah.
And like I think teams are just like, well, if we're not going to give this guy, if this guy's not going to be like our whole offense, we don't need him. Like we can just make do with other guards. And that's a shame. And I think Rob's good. Rob Dillingham is good. He did. My most recent exposure to him was he came and played an OTE, and there was a game where I've been using this for as an example. This happened with Mikey Williams also, who's not good. Where the Thompsons, the City Reapers played against them, and Amanda Nassar did the second Tony Kukoc mentioned. They did the Olympics Jordan Pippen thing where they're like, that guy's not scoring, we're going to kill him. And they just like double teamed him and killed him. And I felt bad because that's not Rob Dillingham's fault. He got two Velociraptors cornered him and beat him up. Like, and I think he still had like 20 points. He was hitting shots, but.
And this is not his. It's not his fault or anything like that. I just looked at last year's draft. There is not and again, it could be cyclical. I'm not saying it can't be. There wasn't a single small guard drafted in 2023. There were some guys who were 6'2", 6'3".
Marcus Sasser is probably the smallest guard.
Yeah, and even then, he plays bigger and
he's like a big dude. Yeah,
he's a fully formed big guy and he had proven it at the highest levels of college. And like, okay, yeah, you could say he's a small guard. You know, Isaiah Wong went like 57 or whatever it was. Like guys got picked, they're 6'2", 6'3", but they're not. You know, if you're gonna be smaller than that, like again, I don't want to keep using Trey, but if you're Trey size, you better be incredible, or they're just not going to prioritize you anymore. So, anyway.
Anyway, to mention a couple other guards.
Yeah.
Stephon Castle is a guy I think could sneak in. He's part of the 7 guys I mentioned. Yeah. He is 6'5", 6'6". He might be like 220. He's a big dude. The question, he's really crafty. I really enjoy watching him. He can really get the edge on basically anybody. He has a little bit of that Harden thing where he just kind of goes into the paint. Doesn't really look that fast. I don't know what kind of shooter he is. If he's like a real shooter, he's a top 5 pick because he's just going to be a guy who does some of the Jalen Williams stuff. It's just like Jalen Williams is just too big to be stopped. If like your defense gets offset on this guy, if he's able to get a corner, you're kind of done, which I really love about him. But he has to shoot. That's the thing. Like you have to shoot, or you have to be hardened in other ways, which nobody else is. But I really like Stephon. I really like Stephon Castle.
I have one thing to add there is that he is also a Georgia product. He's a local, not like City of Atlanta, but he I believe went to Newton from Covington, so like he's like within an hour of Atlanta. So bring it local.
The only other guy I could mention is Marco Jackson at Kansas, who I like, but I'm not sure is a one and done. But he's another like 6'3", 190, reasonably explosive. Like I just don't know.
Kansas is. I'm about to say Kansas is so loaded.
I don't know if he's going to get the burn to be like a guy who gets definitely drafted this year. But he could be a guy. If he looks good at all, I think he could be drafted. I just don't know where. But I mean, Josh Primo went 11th, so anything could happen.
That is true, but I mean they are not to make this a college basketball podcast right now, but I mean he's not going to start at Kansas, is he?
No,
I don't think he's going to start. So and that doesn't mean you can't go one and done. It just makes it harder if you don't play a lot.
Kansas is not like a huge one and done factory, anyways.
They never have been, and that it works for them. Obviously, they've had a lot of success, and they've gone kind of even older than usual this coming season with guys like Dickinson and McCullough and. DeJuan
Harris is 22. Yeah.
So
KJ Adams is reasonably old.
They're going to be very.
Oh, good. I will also mention. I don't know if he's a guy. Interesting guy. I think could have been in this draft. Could have been a stash guy. Is Zvonimir Ivisic, who is like 7'2", real thin, and it was kind of a forward center, which means all the negative connotations you could take from that for a 7'2" guy. Kristaps Porzingis is a forward center. Bol is a forward center, which is really just means like this guy can't play center. Even though he's
currently Muhammad Gay is a forward center.
Yes. He's not 7'2" though. He's fine.
He's not.
But Ivisic had a really, really strong summer. Like I think if he had any of those, if he'd had that run he had 4 months earlier, he would have been drafted. Really good summer. Looked like he was really putting on weight and like becoming more of a force. And then he got the call. He's going to Kentucky. He committed to Kentucky. So he'll be a guy to look to watch, especially with Kentucky's other center, Aaron Bradshaw, who I'm not a huge fan of. He's just kind of a center.
But he was like, wasn't Aaron Bradshaw like a top 10 RCI guy? Like he was a high prospect for college.
So, so was Derek Lively. Like,
yes, I understand. I'm just saying.
There's always one of those guys.
He was up. Yeah, there's always a center that is up there, and then like.
I mean, I don't think Aaron Bradshaw's bad.
No, I just mean even like in the last, I don't even know, maybe 5 years or more. There seems to always be a guy in the RSCI top 6 or 7 that every draft person's like, he isn't going to go there. And it's usually a center. It's usually like, hey, that guy's a center. He's going to fall. And that usually.
Or it's James Wiseman.
Well, yeah. But Lively, to his credit, found it midseason and still became a lottery pick because he found it midseason, was really good. But like, if we talked about this in December, he would have been like a fringe first round pick. And he just, because he was
20s.
He was not looking good.
He looked bad
early.
That's the problem with a guy like Aaron Bradshaw is he's like 6'10" and a half, 220.
So not
huge.
Not 7'1", 7'2" like Lively.
Yeah.
That is that's different.
Sure. The only thing I will say, and I don't think this is going to happen, but I want to have it on the record in case it does, and I can look smart.
Uh-oh.
If Flory Badunga actually reclassifies, which I don't think he will, but if he does, he will be the number 1 pick because he is a Terminator man from the depths of hell. He's one of the most insane. Like we were literally just talking about those kind of centers, and those are guys who just run down court and catch lobs and just physically, even at high level high schools, you get an actual NBA. You get like Dan Gafford there, you'll kill people. Like he'll just dominate. But Badunga is just like a other level athlete, like a 6'8" and a half, 6'9", 220, and he's just like the fastest center I've ever seen in my life. He's insane.
And isn't he going to Duke next year if he stays?
Maybe we'll see. Santos Ciro is going to Duke.
Yeah, because I saw. Oh yeah, I don't think he's committed. Maybe it's just a projection that I saw. But okay.
I don't know if he hasn't. I mean, I'm hoping he goes to the University of Indiana, to Indiana University of Bloomington. He's a Kokomo guy. He's a local guy.
Good.
Once he moved here from, I forget where he's from.
Oh, he's from Kokomo. I see this now. Okay.
Yes, Kokomo, Indiana. But he's Indiana's in the hunt, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. They're going to need another center after Khalil Ware becomes a lottery pick this year. That's right. You heard it here first.
Are you in on Khalil Ware?
Okay. No, I
didn't think you were. I was just curious.
I'm not in on Khalil Ware for we'll say intel reasons as like an NBA player, but I'm happy he went there. He's talented. So
I mean,
he
could
get anything out of
he'll be good in college, I'm sure. And he was another guy I'm pretty sure was in the lottery of a ESPN mock or something like that I seen. Mm-hmm. He's a relatively famous returning college player compared to everybody else. So we'll see how that goes. Anybody else you want to get off your chest? If not, I'll let you get out of here. It's been an hour or so.
Let me scan real quick.
I feel like you always have a guy or two that's just like lurking in the shadows.
I mean, I have guys that I like Terrence Arsenal. I like JoJo Tugler going to Houston, but those are not guys I'm like.
I'm just thinking about Houston guys because I know you love Houston because I love Houston
David Joplin maybe. Like I don't have. This is not a big year for those kind of guys for me. Like it's just tough.
You'll find them.
Maybe a dude Thiero at Kentucky actually gets to play, but I don't know if he's actually good. I just like him because he's a 6'6" guard. That's my thing.
That's what happens.
I'll mention Xavier Booker, even though I think he kind of stinks. Very famous. This is the thing I'll say about Xavier Booker. He is an Indiana guy, born and raised, and I don't have him. And he's a center who's a 5-star recruit, and I don't have him in my top 40.
That's probably a bad sign. Yeah.
It's a bad sign. He is, as I heard him described to me, the worst defensive player I have. Like he is at the high school level is like a catastrophically bad defender for a big man.
That's tough to do in high school.
Going to Michigan State. Good luck to you, son.
Yeah, if you're that big, you should just be good by default in high school. I mean, I don't
really have anyone else.
All the guys on my list that I was going to ask you about, I've asked you about so far. I think so. That's probably a good sign. I mean, other than like Baba Miller is kind of a guy that I've seen people talk about.
Baby deer.
Looking at my list now, I mean, we talked about Bobby Clinton back in the 2023 class. He's playing somewhere other than Wake Forest.
He is playing with Cairns in the NBL.
That is correct. And that was one of the weirder pre-draft cycles of all time, where it was like there was like a couple weeks where everyone was convinced he was going to go in the first round, and then he pulled out and went to NBL, and it was like, what is going on here? There you go.
I have two guys. I
Go
have
ahead.
two guys that I'm a big fan of who are older. One is Oso Ighodaro. Still a huge fan. I keep forgetting he's back at Marquette.
He
Huge
is.
Oso fan. I mean, he plays like Trace Jackson Davis or Larry Nance, so that's my kind of guy.
Yep.
Like he's point center. Like 80% of his field goal attempts are dunks, and he's like 6'8.5". What else could you want? And then the other guy I'm a huge fan of. I don't know if I don't think he'll be drafted because he's old, but I'm very happy he went to somewhere where he could be a featured guy. Is Olivier Comlois going to Michigan? Who?
Oh, okay. So yeah,
I'm just a big fan of as like it's just like aesthetically. Because he's like a Ninja Turtle. It's just a monster.
I can't decide, since we're off the rails at the end of the podcast, how I feel about Michigan basketball in general right now.
They're not going to be very good.
I agree on that. That was a good get at the end. I will say that helped my mood a bit on the Michigan basketball side, but I'm not terribly excited.
Well, that guy, when Tennessee beat them, Kamla's a guy who's really tough to really. It's tough to really see him really stand out in Tennessee because Tennessee their defense was insane. I mean, everybody they played was good at defense.
Yes.
Jonas Adu is a high level shot blocker at the college level, and then like Jemai Mashak, Josiah Jordan James, Zakai Ziegler. Pretty much everybody but Vescovy that they played last year was like an elite level defender. And like Vescovy was fine. He was okay.
And they were also like as a team #1 by a million.
Yeah. But Kamwa was really underrated in that scheme because Kamwa was the guy that you put on the opposing center and he would just beat him to death. Like he killed Filipowski. He might be the reason Filipowski didn't get drafted because he just beat him up. And like he might be the reason Filipowski's stock didn't hit on up and half because that tournament game, Kamo was just pummeling him, like
I remember
whooping his ass. It was really embarrassing, and I'm just a fan of that guy. Like aesthetically, I hope he'll probably be a camp guy. I hope he gets like a 2-way next year, but he's a fun basketball player because he's just 6'8", 250,
physical,
like DeJuan Blair style. Like just I'm going to hurt you. You're going if you post me up, you are going to get hurt. Which is my favorite kind of center.
DeJuan Blair with ACLs.
Well, we all remember DeJuan Blair. You never want to use the one thing. Like I talk a lot about Sheboy and Isaiah Stewart just picking James Wiseman up like a child and moving him around when they played at EYBL. And like it's concerning. That's not the only reason. But
no,
DeJuan Blair like picking Hashim to beat up and throwing him around, like suplexing him around like he was Kurt Angle was really illustrative looking back. It probably meant that Hashim Thabit was not ready to play in the NBA.
That is probably accurate, and we probably should focus more on that at the time. All right, Brian. Well, thanks for doing this, man. Late in the evening here on a weekend. Anything to plug at the end of the podcast? Feel free.
My Patreon.
Patreon.com/
Brian J. NBA.
Here you go. It is there. I am a patron of Brian's. You should be as well. Great stuff always there. And I'm
not sure I'm going to have this month, but
it's August. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll beg you to come on at some point during the season, talk draft stuff again. And again, at the end of the season. And I appreciate you always doing this. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
As for everybody else, please subscribe to this show. I'll be back again with something regarding the Hawks at some point in the next couple days. I don't know when, but please subscribe to this podcast. Check out Brian's work on Patreon, and we'll see you all next time.